etc. And all of these are related to wellness. You cannot solve wellness only by solving one problem or a small problem, but you have to look to the entire environment and how do people and the citizen live within this environment. So that's completely changing the way how we look to health and healthcare. But also, the whole healthcare industry, is becoming what we call a data science. What do I mean by this? We used before to do all the research within labs, laboratories, or what we call wet labs. We used to culture bacteria. We used to do experiments on these cultures. And this is how we used to find disease as well as drugs. But nowadays, we try to understand the genome. We sequence the genome and we start to understand what are the hereditary disease. We start to understand also the genome of plants, of food, and how do this react. But all of these are data. We generate tons and tons of data, and the whole healthcare industry is becoming a data science. Nowadays, we do not discover drugs in laboratories, but we discover drugs on computers, on models. And this is completely changing the world. One, you might not know him, this is one of the biggest venture capital entrepreneur. He's one of the guys who actually launched one of the first computer in the 80s. It was called the ZX, and then he became business angel, etc. He's the guy who launched ARM, one of the largest electronic company. And what he said that actually the pharma companies and the biotech industry are just waiting for their Kodak moment. Do you understand? You know what happened to Kodak? You know who are Kodak? Kodak was a film industry. They were the largest company in photography. And they were making tons and tons of money. But they never realized the competition is coming from digital cameras. And one day they woke up and they just found out that they lost the whole business. And what we are saying is that actually the pharma and the healthcare industry are so focusing on chemical and the product, and if they continue this way, they are no more gonna be the big pharma. Actually, the competitors of the pharma industry are no more Pfizer against AstraZeneca or who else, but it's Google. Google is becoming a drug industry. I don't know if you know that. Google know a lot of stuff about you, about your habit. Facebook even more. They can discover many, many things about your lifestyle. These are the competitors. Sport. Why are we interested in sport? Well, generally because we are feared from boredom. We're looking for excitement. But how do you get excitement? Is by having hyper performance. You're looking for performance and performance and performance. Whether it's human, whether it's mechanical, whether it's car, whether horses, we are looking for measurement and measurement. We're actually no more talking about the sports industry, but we're talking about sport science, the science of sport. A science that is multidisciplinary, a science that actually takes mechanics. If you are looking with mechanical engineering, maybe aeronautics, physiology, understanding the phenotype, how people look, how people behave, but also look into biomechanics. How are we the mechanics within us, the mechanics within horses, how the chemistry is influencing the mechanics, and also the psychology, stress. Can sport relieve stress? Can sport help a lifestyle? Now again, what I'm saying is that the support industry is becoming a data industry. And are we realizing this? Yes, some people more than others. but not many people. It is not only about having shops and selling tickets or having funds. What I'm saying here, it goes beyond that. I'm saying that also sport is related to health and all of these. Now, sport and health are not the exceptions. This happens in other industries. It happens in the telecom industry. The telecoms also, one day they woke up and they realized, hey, STC is probably not competing with mobile. But the true competitors, again, are going to become Google and the like. It is about data. Otherwise, what do you become? You become just a pipeline. Do you make money on pipeline? Not much. You make money on content. You make money on data. Energy and utilities, again, themselves are realizing that it's the data that controls everything. It is a grid. In the end, it's a network. But these guys, they know what you consume. Now we're talking about energy signature. They would know what your dishwasher consumes. When do you use it, etc. We have the ability to know, which actually, if we are not very careful, it has a lot of problem in security. All the hackers can come, and they will know when you are awake or not, when you are at home. So it poses also other problem. Financial services. What is the things that financial and banks owns about you and me and everything? Data. That's the only things they own. It's not about money. It's not about the hard money, about the paper money. It is about data. Financial services, definitely, it's a complete industry that has changed, and they know that they have already lost it. They know that they are just intermediary, and either they're going to reinvent themselves or just they're going to die. They're just going to disappear. Something less visible, aeronautics and automotive. Do you know that actually every flight generates a 0.5 terabyte, 500 gigabytes of data every flight? These are tons and tons of data. Do you know that actually an automotive is 50 million lines of code of software? Do you know what is, to give you an idea of what is 1 million line of code? If you take 1 million line of code and you print it on a normal page, how high will it be? Will it be 20 centimeters, 30, 40? Actually, it will be 160 centimeters. 50 million line of code, that's a tower. That's what make a plane fly. This is data, this is software, this is code. Software is everywhere. Data is eating the world. Do we realize this? So, what I'm saying, and I think this is something that can talk to you, data is the new oil. But by opposition to the oil, data is something that you're going to need to go and fund it, continuously collect it, extract it, refine it, and distribute it, and it can be monetized. And I will be talking a little bit that this is more an analogy. This is reality, because data is the thing that is going and making all the businesses work together. Data are assets. But these assets are different from other assets. They are the ones that we understood the less, because we don't know how to control it, how to govern it, how to regulate it. And that's what we mean by governance. Actually, the regulation has a lot of flaws. We start to see regulation in Europe about privacy and security. That's going to hit other countries if you want to trade with Europe and others. It is also the poor or the most poor utilized and reutilized. It has a very short lifetime, which means if you don't use it, it generally loses its value. Similarly, a lot of organizations do not realize actually the cost of data. When you ask them how much it costs you, they generally think about data centers, computers, etc. But these are commodity. Actually, what is the cost is understanding this data, cleansing this data, making sense of this data, and contextualizing this data. And that's what is the cost, is how to make this data more intelligible. Because that's the way how you're going to reinvent. So, what I'm saying is that if we are looking for true innovation, what we call disruptive innovation, generally these are things that happen at the convergence, because this is a dynamic system of many fields, areas, and disciplines. It's going to happen at the intersection of sports and health, at biotech, agri-tech. Just to give you an example, I'm working with a startup. And this startup, they have a guard. Actually, it's something that you put here on your mouth that is generally for footballers and for people who play rugby, because actually you don't break your tooth. But what we realize is actually they can also measure the saliva. Because when you measure the saliva, actually it gives what are the biochemical stuff. And that tells if this person has received the shock. And that shock can be actually a deadly shock or not. So it is at the intersection between sport and health. So we can prevent things to happen. Now, if it happens, we can take the person in emergency. These are the kind of innovation I'm looking for. And what is the language? The common language is the data and the data science. Because the data is going to be the oil. And by the oil, I don't mean only the petrol. Is the thing that lubricates the processes. Is the things that make the processes more flexible and understand each other. So this is exactly what I'm looking for. And what I'm saying, going even further, that data science and the exploitation and harnessing this data, which is generally what we call artificial intelligence, because what does it mean, artificial intelligence? Is harnessing this data and automating processes as well as decision that computer will do better than us in any case. Because if we don't do it, someone else will do it. That's going to enable to shift toward a culture of leadership, an innovative culture of leadership. What do I mean by this? I have seen many startups. I have been on the judge panel of the startups, and I'm really happy what I have seen. But what I'm looking for something very more innovative. I don't want to see next year only copycat of what is happening in the West. I would like you to become leaders. And this is exactly the message. If you are looking for creating a true knowledge economy, you're going to need to go deep into the technology. You're going to need to go deep into the science and looking into the convergence between these sciences and this discipline. It has been in our culture that actually donating blood saves lives. So what I'm saying is actually one day, donating data will save lives. Because we're talking about sequence data, we're talking about the DNA. I'm convinced about that. I'm convinced that actually it will become a day that the citizen will understand that they have to donate data. But not only we need to donate it, we need to nurture it. So it will be also an engine for nurturing innovation. That's going to be the creation of your innovation and the ideas that you're going to have. We're going to be looking into the data, and some of this actually going to be done by computers. We're going to start to have artificial intelligence and computer creating and inventing in our place. We just have to accept that. And if we don't do it, or we don't believe it's going to happen, it will happen. So, in summary, and I'm finishing here, and a takeaway. So what I'm calling datatization, that's a word that I have invented, which means the data becoming everywhere. It goes beyond digitization. This is not about transformation. This is not about creating websites and with money and having some kind of small payment or what people call the platform. This goes about the data becoming the new currency. And it's not, but you're going to need to understand, you're going to need to harness the data. This data is the new oil, but it needs to be refined constantly. It is an asset. But unlike any other asset, if I share something with you, I have to use it one time, you have to use it over time. So it loses its value. Data, the more I share it, the more it increases its value. So unlike also other assets or physical assets or even oil, its uses, it decreases over time. But data self-generates itself. If you know how to harness, it's an infinite asset. So, and if we are looking to create a leadership innovation culture, and not what I called a copycat culture, not just copying others, and saying, oh, okay, I'm doing another platform or another shop or whatever. I don't have anything about that. These are going to become commodities. Believe me, these are going to be generated by computer. You're not going to have, they're going to be done by robots. Believe me, it's going to happen. If we are looking for a true culture, we're going to need to harness the data. We're going to need to put a strategy, because no matter what business you are in the data business. And if you are not in the data business, you are probably in no business. Thank you.
شكرا للدكتور رضوان. أذكر الحضور بعنوان الجلسة: الابتكار والفرص الاستثمارية الواعدة في المنظومة